Well, as some pundits warn of deteriorating food conditions again in Gaza, the United Nations is refusing to verify that a Gazan famine, which was trumpeted for a year and a half by senior officials, ever actually took place. The head of the United Nations World Food Program, Cindy McCain, declared in May 2004 that northern Gaza had entered, quote-unquote, full-blown famine. In March of last year, Matthew Hollingworth, the WFP's interim director for the Palestinian territories, proclaimed, quote-unquote, famine is a reality in the Gaza Strip. 2 months prior, Martin Griffiths, then the UN Emergency Relief Chief, said the Israel-Hamas war had brought famine to Gaza with, quote, such incredible speed, unquote, asserting that, quote, the great majority of 400,000 Gazans deemed at risk by UN agencies to be at risk of starvation are, quote-unquote, actually in famine, not just at risk of famine. Those assertions have had enormous diplomatic, legal, and societal consequences and led in part to the International Criminal Court arrest warrants issued for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. But the figures those people relied on were repeatedly retroactively revised, and a good chunk of them were debunked by a review committee within the agency that compiled them. And now, over 2 months after a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was implemented, and absent any substantiating data or visual evidence to such effect, UN agencies have gone quiet, dodging our inquiries as to whether and when a famine actually took place. We asked the Office of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres earlier this month what evidence it had pointing to a famine actually occurring in Gaza during the war.
We talked about the very severe risk of famine. Those studies were done by the IPC, which is a group of UN agencies and also a group of non-UN agencies, American, German, Europeans, and others, who've established a scientific method to talk about hunger, to classify hunger, and we stand by their findings. One thing we don't have, we may have, the UN have the world's most recognizable logo, but there's no brand management. There are a lot of people who can speak on, quote-unquote, behalf of the UN. I'm speaking on behalf of the Secretary General, what we've said here. And what others have said.
UN News Center. I'm not talking about the special experts or anything. I'm talking about the UN Central News Center. Reported extreme hunger and famine.
Well, there's a, we could go on for a long time. There is a qualitative scientific difference between hunger and famine. Famine is a very specific word. We have talked often about hunger in Gaza, and I don't think anyone can dispute that there was hunger in Gaza. And I think we've seen it, and our colleagues, numerous UN colleagues, have come out and spoken to what they've seen with their own eyes. And as for the IPC, I think I've answered that question.
Guterres' office referred us instead to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, known as OCHA, and the UN World Food Program. But lead spokespeople for the World Food Program in Rome, New York, and Washington all ignored our inquiries, asking if the WFP could comment on whether famine had taken place. An assistant spokesperson said that no WFP representative is available to answer that question. The lead spokesperson for OCHA initially told us she would look into the matter, but ignored subsequent communications. A spokesman for the Israeli mission to the UN told us, quote, the only famine in Gaza relates to the Israeli hostages who have been and are being starved and tortured while in brutal captivity. Reporting here from the State Department in Washington, Mike Wagenheim, I-24 News.